Hey everybody, we are back for another episode of MirrorChat. And you guys, I am so excited to introduce my guest today. We are having a cuppa with Tehilla Luttig. Many of you might recognize her beautiful face, and some of you may not. And I will let her introduce herself, but she is joining me from just outside of Cape Town, South Africa. So that might be a hint to you on who she is, but that's just a little bit of who she is. So yeah, you want to say hi?
Hi, so nice to be here and to have the cuppa with you, literally, even though it's miles apart. I,
I know.
yeah, that I am question. I think that I am God left a full stop for a reason because there's just so much to it. Like there's the I'm a mom. I've got two beautiful kids, a year apart, so it was a tough start, but they're at older ages now, at 9 and 10 years old. So it's I get to enjoy them a bit more. And yeah, wife, we've celebrating our anniversary this year. I'm a couples therapist and I can't remember how long we've been married. I think it's 12 years this year.
How long has this been?
So yeah, there's lots of elements to me, but that's the general. I'm passionate about helping families. I actually started as a play therapist and quickly realized if we help the parents, that the kids didn't need to come back to therapy as much. And so I shifted completely from my master's in play therapy over to couples therapy. And so that's how I ended up working with couples the last just over a decade.
Oh my gosh, right there's some conversation points right there because that's incredible. Yeah, starting with the children and then realizing, wait a minute, I think let's go into not just dealing with symptoms as much and get to some,
Yeah.
like it or not. Yeah. I mean, I
Yeah.
can remember taking my daughter, who is now 25, and she needed to do some therapy uh, when she was younger. And Sarah was adopted from China, and there were attachment issues and things like that. But just being in that room and realizing at certain points, I'm like, yeah, this is not about her. And at that moment, I'm like, ah, mama, let's deal with some of my own things and insecurities and, patterns and all of that,
I
which,
often like, oh, sorry, I interrupted you there.
no, but that's sometimes hard to look at. And
It
it's not
is.
always the case, but it's a both and, right? Like in everything.
I often joke that I'm saving for my kids' therapy more than their college because I think it's going to be more necessary. But it's parenting has changed over the years. Like every generation, I was thinking this morning about how my parents did their best, and that was enough for me to be able to give my best. And it just gets better from there. It's not perfect, but it's in that imperfection that we grow and learn. And I've studied psychology, I've all paid to pay for my studies, so I've had so much family background. I thought I'm going to be an awesome mom. Like I knew everything until I had kids, and then I realized like I actually know nothing, and they bring out so much. But it is such a privilege to have had a foundation where they tried hard enough that you can see there's a possibility. And that's why I like really love the image of God as the father, because there's so many people that are longing for a father figure and longing for somebody to look up to, and that there is somebody within them is so necessary because yeah, every single client I work with, doesn't matter if they're 23 or 63, they are dealing with their inner kid. They're dealing with a part of them that felt too much or too little or both. So it's a powerful journey.
Yeah, it is. I love what you just said, though, about it doesn't matter how much education background we have. When we're in it, it's a whole nother other, right?
Yep.
And I mean, to me, that must give you such a place of compassion and being able to be like, we can head knowledge this all day long,
Mm.
but yet when it rubber meets the road and you're in the thick of the tantrum, the situation where you're scared and you don't know how to handle whatever might be coming. I think of parenting right now with technology and the way the world has access to our minds, our bodies, our
Yeah.
spirit, everything, that it's trying to disrupt the natural God-given ability to know the voice of truth and coming at it, and then that conflict, to me,
Mm.
I can't imagine how that might impact your response when maybe you've been in a session or you've read all the books and then you're in that moment and it's like, I don't know what to do, because our own trauma comes up, triggers the
Yeah.
situation and says, oh, guess what? You thought that was healed. It's
Exactly.
clearly coming to the surface right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow. So
I
tell
remember
me a
walking
little
one
bit
day.
about that. Tell me a
Mm.
little bit about that, like what it's like when you have been working with clients and then you have your own parenting experience kind of mixed in. Is there just so much grace in that, to meet them kind of
There's
right where they're at?
so much grace. I was asked, I used to do presentations at all the private schools locally and do talks there on parenting before because I was a play therapist. So before I had kids, they asked me to do talks. And after I had kids, I ripped up all my notes and I wanted to like find all the parents I spoke to and apologize and say, I'm so sorry. The textbooks make it sound like this is what happens. They do this and then this happens. And it's so like that there's no trauma filters. There's no different attachment. There's no difference in personalities. My kids, I mean, it's a boy and a girl, but they are opposites. They've only born a year apart, but the one century seeking, the other one century avoiding, like complete opposites. And so you can't cookie cut the solution to people. And so it's given me so much more compassion and empathy and understanding for everyone, and to understand, for me, a huge part, a lot of our marital strife is because we have different ideas of parenting values and how we parent. And so the butting of heads of like, no, but he's doing this, or she's not doing this, or I'm just going to stop helping because nothing I do is right. All of those things perpetuate the brokenness of a family, or that can feel like brokenness.
Yeah.
But I remember the one day walking at my parents' farm, and my daughter was getting bullied at school, and I was just in a state, and I was praying like, I don't know, like I know these tools, but she doesn't want to listen to me, and like I don't know how to like help her with this. And I just heard the Lord saying like, do you trust me? And I was like, what do you mean? Of course I do. I'm busy talking to you about it, but I trust you. But the class needs to change, the teacher needs to change, this needs to like, and I'm going through all these things that I feel need to happen. And he was like, but do you trust me? And I was like, yes, of course I do, but these things need to change. And I just kept hearing, do you trust me? Do you trust me? Do you trust me? Until that like hit me. And I was like, I'm not trusting you at all right now.
Right.
I'm trusting you to do what I want you to do to make it better.
Oh man, so connect with that.
So it was a very profound, and I have to remind myself still to this day about it, because there's times where I'm like, okay, this is the best way, this is the way things are going to work out. And to have that control and to be able to say, actually, there's somebody else that's got way more control than me, and to have that trust in it.
Right. And to give him that opportunity to show himself as trustworthy, even if it
Yeah,
doesn't look the way we think it should.
exactly.
That's so interesting that you say that, because like whether it's in marriage, it's just in life. Like, I mean, I am in that so much right now and have been for the last couple of years, having gone through a divorce after 33 years of marriage, falling in love when I didn't expect it at all.
Mhm.
Met someone on the Mirror Word, actually, Bible study from across the country,
Mm.
and had a very short courting time, but a long friendship time. Well, long, 9 months, but that was all remote. And then a very short amount of time together, we knew. And then it was like, that was not in my plan. This is what I
Yeah.
want my life to look like. I will not entertain the idea of it, somebody for X number of years, da 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 da.
Yeah.
And this is very different way. I mean, I thought, Lord, wouldn't you want me to just be focused on you?
Mm.
But there were things that he had for both of us outside of that. And now moving into every facet of life changing,
Mm.
financially, physically, moving down from a home to an apartment, to now thinning out my apartment, to renovating an RV, and us about to take off around the country and doing ministry and family visits and different things. And every day hearing, do you trust me? Do you trust?
Oh,
And it's like, yes, as long as I have X amount in the bank account.
yeah,
Yes, as long
exactly.
as this happens. And him going, do
Mm,
you trust me?
yeah.
And him showing himself as father, like you were talking about. Let me
Mm,
be the father that your heart longs for. I
mm,
just,
exactly.
yeah.
Protector, provider. There's nothing I wouldn't do for my kids. So to imagine that God with abundance. My dad said it the other day again, and it just struck me again how often we're striving for abundance instead of realizing we come from abundance.
Right,
Like it's not something we have to get to, it's where we started from. When you spoke now about, wouldn't you want me focused on God, like on you now first? Like immediate thought that came to me was everything you do is focusing on him because there's no separation. There's no, like, I really believe he's here to experience life through us. Like, whatever I experience, the ups, the downs, the lows, the mistakes, he's there with us. Like, we either know he's there or we don't, but he's
right.
there. And so everything you do, the RV, the changes, it's all part of like enjoying his company.
So much. Yeah. And then, so like in that, Tila, he's like, let me change your mindset on this. You have a view that this, even though you say you don't, but
Yeah.
did you hear what you said? Yeah. That you think that you need to be in 3 hours of quiet time and meditation and breath work and doing this with me. You can do that with someone else. And that's expanding. That's expanding
Mm.
so many elements as you heal. You have a
Yeah.
view that you can't heal, you're not healed and you can't be with someone until this.
Yeah.
But what if this is part of the healing to not do it
Mm.
alone? And it's like breaking our mindsets of what is and what's right, what's the right Christian thing versus
Mm.
life in Him. Just literally in that perichoresis dance every day, all the time.
Mm.
Yeah. Whether we're demoing a place and you hit your thumb and you're saying choice words to, or you're,
Yeah.
living the life and or raising kiddos and experiencing, yeah, the perfection of this. And that's what I love about all of this is just like hearing how is this impacting our lives? What are we doing where we're at? How are we walking out this inclusion, this place of union and oneness? What does that look like for you? What does that look like for me? And that people like, we literally are giving people new paradigms, ways of seeing that they're like, wait,
Mm.
what does this mean? It's not hard, it's not efforting, but yet
Mm.
it is, doesn't mean we're not going to experience hard things, walk through really difficult
Mm.
challenges. Yeah, it's beautiful. And it doesn't have to be religious. We get that gets to all go by the wayside. So
Yeah.
tell me how, like, speaking of that, in the work that you do, whether you're in person or online with clients, and bringing this life that really is our life
Mm.
into the work that you do, what does that look like for you in terms of our walk with our Creator, our Abba, our brother,
Mm.
our mother, or not?
It's very beautiful and personal and yeah, I've got clients from all religious backgrounds.
Yeah.
So I'm very open to anybody. Uh, but I also like when there are people that are Christian and they come and see me, I love how grace just resonates. Like if you're tuning in a guitar, you don't have to like force a little instrument to make the same sound as the guitar. You get the guitar to get like in tune with that and like that grace that just resonates because Christianity is so divided and people will say they're Christian and I'll say, okay, great. But it's, I might have different views and we'll go into it and just that resonation of immediately like, oh, that makes sense, that belief, which is really beautiful. But I find like it's not a one and done thing. I think a lot of people get like, okay, you get born again or you have this and then you're going to be, you have to remind yourself, like I have to remind myself at times, like I don't have to do this alone. Like I'm trying to, where you were saying, like, I wanted it to be done like this. For me, I often see it like a puzzle, and I love puzzles. So I've got this piece of blue, and I'm convinced it's this mountain because I've been busy with this mountain backdrop, and it's this silhouette, and it's blue, and it's the same blue as it must be. And God's got the big picture, and He's like, that's actually the river, and it comes over here, but He's waiting, He's patient. Whereas if I say, God, I don't know what to do with this, can immediately lead me there. But while I'm saying, no, no, don't worry, I've got this, I'm trying to force it in where it doesn't belong. And we can take so much time doing that. And it's fine. It's not, you're not doing it wrong if you do it that way. It's just there's a shortcut that we often overlook because we don't feel we're we've been taught that hustle, we have to earn our worth. We have to keep earning our belonging. And it's one of the biggest things I work with my clients with because even in a relationship, we question our belonging and if how loved we are, how lovable we are. And like there's so many people that I work with that struggle to receive, that struggle to rest, that struggle to be. We're human beings, not human doings. In Him we live and move and have our being, and yet it's something we find so challenging. And I have to remind myself, I had 3 jobs in high school, so I am used to working hard. I've worked most of my life, and every now and then just to remember because I'll say to God like, oh, but the finances, if the finances were in order, then I would be able to. And then I hear Him say, but they are.
Yes.
Like I'm looking at the wrong bank statement. And so I know it sounds wishy-washy when you're feeling the stress of payments that need to go in, but there are so many places we're trying to put that puzzle where if we allow Him to, there's so many more ways than your income that He can bless you. There's so many more ways than this idea of I'm going to, be without a partner for 3 years and this and this. It's like I've got a better way. So you had to be open for Him to be able to go, I've got another way for you. And that's what makes it so beautiful. It's a co-creation. It's something we do together. And that is a big part in my couples work and my work with individuals is that allowing surrendering because surrendering is not giving up, surrendering is leaning into, and it's with this trust. So if we surrender to our partners or we surrender to God, it's this trust that you've got me. And it's such a beautiful process but really hard to do when we haven't felt gotten before.
Oh my gosh, yes. And it's like something that when we do life with other people, where it's like caught, we see that it is like this energetic connection of like, okay, I hear that, I see how that's played out for you. What does that look like in my own heart and life? Why are those blocks there? When you say that trust, I'm thinking about trust, I'm thinking about belief, I'm thinking about faith in not in our old understandings, but in that place that it opens up. Like when you say, like we're living from abundance, not toward. He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, and it's like so many times I've heard, Amy, money is not a problem for me.
Mhm.
It's not a problem. So like when we think of bills or whatever and things that need to be paid or what we have created these mental constructs
Yeah.
of what ought to be the story we tell ourselves about
Mm.
something or circumstance versus is this an invitation? I remember Graham Cook back in the days, he'd say, like a problem is an opportunity. Every problem is an opportunity for God
Mm.
to reveal Himself in a way that He's never been able to be for you in the past. And in those moments where we get kind of triggered and the emotions start to
Mm.
dictate things, that's when it's hard to come back. But we get the practice. It's that, to me, it's that point of tension
Yeah.
where that's where, muscles come from, is from tension. And then that we've got the strength that had we not stood into the tension,
Mm.
the strength to move that thing wouldn't be there
Yeah.
afterward. And oh my goodness, yeah, there's just so much in that. All of those things that you said. Yeah, the journey is beautiful, yet sometimes so difficult when we get
Mm.
to step in. But wow, yeah, so, so
I
good.
did a post yesterday on how we judge things in this like sense of um if things are going bad at work, then I'm bad at work. Or if everything is good or bad, my hair is a good day or a bad day, my mood is good or bad. It's this constant judgment that leaves us constantly failing or passing. And if you can change it to easy or heavy, it just changes the judgment of our daily conversations with ourselves. So those times where the money isn't in and the faith is there, but you also know the fees need to be paid, the school fees or whatever, thinking of it as heavy instead of this is wrong, this can't be right. Like with this judgment,
Right.
it just changes that conversation to leave a bit more space for, yeah, and I'm cautious with what I say because I know there's so many people struggling financially and otherwise, and then they feel like I've prayed and I'm not seeing it. Various things that my head is jumping to, but the one part is for me, because it's not working out the way I want to, doesn't mean it's not going to work out. Like I really believe it's going to be working out and even better. But I have to remember my faith. And it's not because I have faith that it's going to work out, but it's remembering my faith that I can go to sleep in the storm like Jesus did. It was this huge storm. Like I often think of if I was sending my kid to Earth, I would want them to have the most perfect weather. If they go out at sea, the seas have to be flat. There's got to be perfect sunlight, not too hot. Don't burn him, but don't get like you want to protect and control. He was out at sea in this massive storm, but he slept because of he knew who he was. He knew not because he's Jesus only, but because of his faith in God and God's protection and how he didn't give him a carefree life. He gave him all the obstacles, the temptations and things and said, but you're not alone. And
Right.
so when we judge our feelings as, okay, well, this is a hard feeling, so it must be bad. When we get to make friends with our feelings, the difficult ones too, like jealousy or disappointment or fear, they don't become threats. And then it becomes easier to go through those events because it's not I'm failing or I'm passing. It's this is heavy and life sometimes has heavy stuff, but I'm so glad I'm not carrying it alone.
Mm, yeah, so good. I am thinking about like what you were saying about good, bad, like eating from the wrong tree. And then we start
Mhm.
really like going in a direction where we attach meaning, we attach stories to these things and not, yeah. My kids are raised, I have a 25-year-old and a 30-year-old, and wanting their path to be easy,
Mhm.
right? Yet, and then wanting to come to their rescue whenever the problems hit, and then realizing if they depend on me, there's no need for them to need God, right? Like to interfere with that relationship that He wants to nurture with them. And I remember having many conversations with people and doing different coaching and things with folks. It's like that's that area where we get to be there, love them through it, yet let them navigate, the obstacles and the things that, sometimes maybe we didn't on our own in our own journey. And now we realize what does come and the benefit of those things. But oh my goodness, yeah. Yeah, there's so many things that kind of stir that this is beautiful. And like when you're talking to clients that maybe aren't in that place of the same way of understanding who God is, but that resonance with the language you use in these kinds of things, we don't have to use His name to convey these things, these experiences, these ways of connecting and opening up to a trust of something beyond us,
Yeah.
knowing that source. And, I hear what you're saying about, yeah, there are a lot of people that are struggling and that, but moving into how do we navigate that opens up to, it doesn't have to look this way, maybe, or how it's
Mm.
going to be, but there's something that is shifting inside of us when we let go of our expectations or thinking it's up to us. I mean, to me,
Mm.
that comes so much easier when we do believe
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
in the God of our creation and who we are, but then opening up to that and shifting where, like, to me, that's clearing the clutter. in the mind. If
Mm.
I have an idea that this is what it's supposed to look like this is the answer to how I'm going to get the funds or whatever it is to buy the car, to pay the tuition, to do the things. And then I'm like I can't even hear then
Mm. Mm.
the next step, that gentle guidance that says, here's the way, walk in it.
Yeah.
I
I
don't know
heard
why I feel such a deep that invitation that is always there, that
mm,
he is always has our best interest.
mm,
That, for me, Tehila is going down to that. Do I believe that he is a good dad?
mm,
Whether it's about finances, whether it's about raising our children, whether it's about
mm,
the next steps in our life or whatever it might be, or looking at the world in the way your particular government system is operating and the things happening socially, economically, and saying, is he good?
mm,
Is he really a good father? Like, can I, or is he, or am I being punished, or those
mm,
kinds of things? And I know for me, like, we can band-aid all of those things. We can go and try to have better faith, try to trust him when, finances are off, or with our children, or our
mm,
communities at large. But when we get down to that source, just like you were talking about with starting with play therapy and then going, wait, let's go deeper. Let's
mm,
not deal with what we're seeing on the surface. Let me get to the parents and see if we can't deal with some of these things there earlier.
mm,
And that, for me, in my life of 58 years, has come to dealing with that heart issue more when I started reading the mirror.
mm,
When I'm like, wait a minute, I can say all these things, but if in my subconscious belief is I'm an exception, shame rules, that
yeah.
voice of condemnation, of all the things, growing up in a reformed background that has a Calvinistic kind of mindset of you're either in or out, like you're that
Yeah.
that predestined in a different way that's painful, that I'm like, oh crap, I'm out. Like, I'm so out. And believing that at a young age, like I might as well just continue to go this way and have fun because
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I'm not chosen anyway. And that is what, reading the mirror,
Mm,
allowing that to permeate my
yeah.
entire being, of my inclusion, understanding more of like Paul, what he's saying,
Yeah.
and going back and being able to now read the Old Testament in a whole new light, seeing things because of the way your father has brought that to the average person to
Mm,
understand the Aramaic, the Hebrew, the Greek, and look at this and say, that's not what it says. And that we can look at multiple translations and see it through a different lens. And that is what starts to shift all those other things and go, oh, that
mm,
is for me, to trust him, to hear him, to know that he wants to walk with me
yeah.
in everything, and that he's going to see it through. Even if I don't understand at all, that I can trust him because he's a good dad. He's a
Mm,
really good dad.
exactly.
Yeah. And so
Even
what,
if we don't feel
yeah.
we deserve it. Just with the mirror thing, I was thinking, um, my daughter sang in a choir a couple of years ago, and we've got a lot of very poor schools in the area, and so it was different schools. And it was winter, and some of the kids didn't have jerseys and they didn't have shoes on, and I was like, they were cold, and my heart was breaking for them. And I was trying to enjoy the music because they had the most angelic voices, but I was just so looking at like, oh, what am I going to do? Okay, I'm going to get funding. I'm going to try and find this. I'm going to buy them all shoes. Like as soon as this was finished, like my head was going there, and I felt this deeply, and he was saying to me, if you see them with pity, you don't see them at all. And that just stirred. And I think for where we are in the world at the moment, with everything that's so confusing and going so fast, like which mirror are we holding up when we look at people? Are we bringing them down because we're looking at them with pity, or are we bringing them up with what God sees in them? Because that's an invitation then for them to like, oh, because when we look at them with pity, we feed into that energy of their pity, of their suffering. And it's
Right.
not to say that we can't have compassion and we can't do things, but how much more powerful it is to invite them into who they are than it is to see them with pity. And in all our circumstances, we can see it with pity, or we can see it as what problem, what is this going to be? Like, what is this pathway going to be? What is this new opportunity going to be?
Oh my gosh, yes. You can feel the difference instantly
Mm,
when you shift. And it's literally just on the other side of the veil. And all we have to do is choose to align, right?
yeah, yeah,
And like I can feel that so quickly. So, and that's amazing. So tell me, how did that play out then for you, the rest of the listening to them? Were you able to shift that just because
yeah. It was
your daddy telling you?
it was just such an awakening because I've done a lot of community work and I love working in the community. But that shift from I'm trying to rescue or trying to fix or trying to band-aid versus no, I'm just holding up a mirror. I just here to like nothing special other than the fact that you're so special. Like how beautiful it is to see yourself as you've always been known. And so it's I have to remind myself sometimes because like you said, the technology and all these advancements and just to remember what he sees and he didn't I don't picture God sitting on the edge going like, oh crap, what did I do? Look where they're heading. Like, there's just more and more like the faster things are going, the more the advancements, the more he can, if we can do it ourselves, it's not a miracle. So there's more room for miracles.
And that feels so much more freeing and less of a burden on us, which was the goal, right? Like he's like, I didn't ask you to carry this. My yoke is easy.
Exactly. Yeah,
So then we align with his mirror, and then we get to hold that same mirror to the next person,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
But until we can do it for ourselves, I don't think we can do it for another. Like I don't feel like I can. I can't not grasp my inclusion, my belovedness, my righteousness,
Mm,
and fully experience that for another. I mean, we do it even when we're not always there, but that's when I
mm,
feel like it's the most powerful. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. I think we're easy to have more compassion for others than ourselves. Like you'll have, like you said, like, is he really a good God? Like there's a lot of resistance because, I made this mistake or I made this mistake or I'm not as good as that person. And so having compassion for others and being able to like, God loves you so much. Sometimes it's easier to like, oh, but for me, it's different. I'm the exception. Um, and to realize actually, no, you're not the exception. You're as included as everybody else in that. And it's a really I've recently, yeah, I should probably not talk about it now, but I'm trying to write some of the Bible stories, but in mirror, like translation, like how I interpret the mirror. So, like, I was doing the lost son and the lost sheep and the lost coins, and I was just thinking of how beautiful he used those three things specifically. The sheep because it's a sacrifice. We have to like do something to earn our worth, this provision, like, and then the money is because that's what we think. Like, if I've got that, I'm going to be happy. And then the son is like what most of us feel is like, I'll never be able to sacrifice that. Like how he used these powerful metaphors in different ways for each person's different language. You worried about your sins? I've taken care of it. That lost sheep was as important. The guy had 100 sheep. In those days, that's a lot. He was rich. He could have, put it aside. Nope, still went to go and fetch it. The lost coin. You worried about money. I'm not saying don't worry about money or that you don't need money or try and be humble and pretend you don't need it. I've got it. The son, the dad waiting with, that's one of the most beautiful pictures in the world for me is this dad with open arms. This guy was like prepared to work in the barns and clean and sweep and earn his way back. And the dad was waiting, excited, just like, you're back, you're back, you're back, because he's always seen who his kid was. We lose sight of who we are and we do things. People are very often so scared of if we don't have sin and if we don't have hell, people are going to start messing up. You don't mess up because of those things. You mess up because you think you're messed up.
This is
And even
how
mess
you
up
see yourself.
exactly the things you do. The ugly duckling was putting his wings in and putting his neck in, trying to become more of a duck because he didn't know he was a swan. And I can imagine how he was putting his wings in and putting his neck. The more he wobbled around and fell on his brothers and sisters, and probably then got shouted at even more because he was falling all over them and squawking differently and being funny. But he was trying to fit into a mold that wasn't his. And when we get to be our mold, it's just so freeing to know that you are worthy. And he uses these three like metaphors to speak because different we have different worries. For some people, money is more of the worry. For others, it's their past that's more of a worry. For other people, it's relational. And I never felt that loved, and I don't know if I'll be that loved, and can I be that loved? And so using the relational aspect, but he's using all these ways to make sure he's found because he's not hiding.
And he wants to express himself so uniquely through us. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
don't be the duck when you're not a duck. You're the
Mm.
swan. Go be
Yeah.
this. You know, that reminds me about, I don't know, it's been probably 15 years ago or more when I got a sense it was like there was ministry and things like that in my future, but I was kind of like, I'm kind of a wild child. I'm kind of this. I'm like, I can't imagine. So I was imagining what
Mm.
I had in my head of women in leadership and ministry. And it wasn't a
Mm.
pretty sight. It wasn't what I wanted to be. I'm like, that's not very fun. And I felt then he's kind of like, I didn't ask you to be that. But
Mm.
I didn't have a grid beyond that. I
Mm.
thought we have to fit, you know, so like what you're saying, whether it's a duckling, whether it's the all of these things, he's like saying, let's break the mold. Be you, not these boxes that you've had your whole life of who I am, how I convey myself, and portray myself in and through your life as a unique expression. Yeah, just like even this, like being on here, I just get to be me. I used to think I don't memorize scripture well. I don't know. I know a lot of scripture. I can't tell you where it came from.
I said, you're not alone.
And I would try. Then I'm like, but the more that I read, he's like, I'm not telling you to do that. That's not how I made you, Amy. Just go be
Yeah.
you. Just go be you and give other people permission to be themselves,
Mm. Mm.
And I think we're moving into that, like culturally, just people,
Mm.
we're more accepting of that and of differences of people in the expression. But I think doing that in the church as a unique expression is super important too. What does that look like? It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to
Mm.
fit the mold.
Exactly. I think a lot of what Christianity has taught in the sense of humility has often forced people, like the way I see it is like, oh, so people are in the dark, I'm gonna blow out my candle so I can go sit in the dark with them, like let's be lesser with them. Misery loves company, they say. So like, like those people are struggling. So I'm not going to talk about my struggles. I'm gonna like, actually I had a really good day, but I'm gonna blow it out and go and talk about, that's nothing. My trouble was this and this and this, and I'm struggled with this. Where we're getting like invited into that light, the candle on the like hill, being that light that invites more people to light there. That's the mirror again. It's not the window shopping like I wish. It's the mirror invitation of there you are. And so the more we light, that's why with the three parables, and I'm sorry that I'm bringing it up again, but it's just been in
Yeah.
my head a lot because I've been just finished writing it. But the three things is because it's different languages for different people. He doesn't want it to be one size fits all. It's your unique expression. There's nobody else that he had in mind to live this life with. It was you, whether you believe it or not. And for each of us to know, for your daughters to know, like for your daughter, I don't know what your other child is, you mentioned it too, but
Boy.
for each child
Yeah.
to know that there is such a unique, and I think that we get stuck on like lack of money, lack of time, lack of energy, lack of, you know, safety, lack of security, lack of everything. And then we think, I often catch myself with my kids growing up so fast, like I'm running out of time. But God is the source of abundance. There's more than enough time for what we really need to do.
In that place of being rather than
Yeah.
doing. so good. I am, I feel like this journey through life, like when you say it's so we can look and focus, or maybe people want us to kind of enter into that dark place with them. I was a co-founder of a nonprofit, Mosaics of Mercy, which was offering hope, education, and resources for those struggling with mental health and addiction.
Oh, wow.
And, I sensed in 2020 that I was to step away from something that was becoming, actually, it's become in the Houston area, which is a big city. It's becoming a very well known in this area. And I was like, you want me to step away, as this is like, we were finally, like all of a sudden we were getting government funding to create a database for mental health resources. We were, speaking at schools, churches, universities, doing all kinds of things on mental health. It was wild how this started. It started in my garage as I was doing these creative sessions. I called them Beauty and Brokenness. And it was a 10-step process on creating a mosaic that often paralleled aspects of our own life journey. And it was a faith-based component. And we had an art room. I had an art room. People would come in. I would do it for hundreds of people, or I'd do it one-on-one. I've done it for, like, usually in my art room, I could fit a dozen people and do these workshops. They're very powerful. And, a lot of the things we were talking about, like when you were talking about the puzzle piece of, you think this puzzle piece goes here, and that's got to be part of the mountain, and it's really part of the river. One of the steps where after they had created and broke the pieces, and we would break china, and it was a very therapeutic thing for folks. And one of the steps I talk like about, where we have ideas of where our pieces are to fit. But sometimes we need to set them aside for a time until the master artist says just where to place each one. Like, we have an idea of how it should come together, but he may have to set some of those broken pieces off to the side. And, I was just kind of thinking about that process and the way, what happened when I needed to step down from my role was that there was such a focus on the brokenness. People want to stay in that place. It's like misery loves company. We want to focus on the problem, where I was, in essence, trying to, but I was still growing in a lot of this message, and knew God was speaking to my heart about, we're not broken. We're not broken. It's revealing the wholeness, but yet we do experience on the earth broken experiences, right? There are circumstances that feel broken. They appear in our natural senses as broken.
Yeah.
What is the bigger masterpiece that's coming together? And then, so is the focus on the brokenness, or is the focus on what binds our brokenness together and creates this one of a kind, unique, beautiful creation? And I think there's that fine line, or is it a fine line, where we enter their darkness,
Yeah.
sit with that, so that there is a connection, there is that, yes, I hear you, I see you, and then that time to hold the mirror up that says, let me remind you of who you are, because it seems you've forgotten, Yeah. Anyway, and so there's, I have pulled back from that, and I still, there's things that I know God kind of still has for it as I've rewritten some of that content, but it is beauty, not brokenness now,
Okay.
versus beauty in brokenness. But yet
Yeah.
there's a time we are with folks, and a time we need to,
Definitely.
yeah,
I think that the big thing there, sorry, I've got a lash or something in my eye.
all good.
Like, for when you step into that darkness, like, I don't know, like I do a lot of inner child healing. So like I do like to help people to go in and reconnect with that kid. It could be pitch dark in that room, but for them not to be alone shifts the whole environment. And so like when you step into that space with them, to not be scared of the dark because you know the light,
Yeah.
like you know what they're capable of, not seeing them with pity, but seeing them with, oh, I can't wait for you to see what I see. It's so exciting. Like every client that signs up to me, I get excited and I realize they're actually in such an awful place and they're like broken, like they feel broken and they feel so, but I get so excited because so you can go into that dark, but if somebody's there that's not scared, it changes the whole environment of that place that you're in, like you were for those people, for so many different people and so many different places. It's beautiful.
So tell me about that. Like when you do that, and I've been certified in what's called rapid mind renewal. It's the same kind of thing. I'm not sure that it's the same kind of thing, but it's something like that. That where we go in and where in that memory, you're not alone. Who do you see? Looking
Yeah.
around, whether it's Jesus, whether it's something
Mm.
else, someone else, a presence. Where is love in that space? Is that the kind of thing where like it's like using your sanctified imagination and then allowing whether the spirit takes it from there or they just see that, feel that? Is that the kind of thing that you experience with clients?
Yeah, it's something that I sort of developed just on my own from working. I was very much psychology is all about the brain, and so we studied the brain like endlessly and had all these like cognitive behavioral therapy, all these tools for the brain, but they didn't deal with the root. So it's like this really long process.
Oopsie, I think you froze for a second. You might have a weak connection.
Oh, it froze for a moment. I don't know if you guys
Yeah.
can
Oh,
still
now
hear
you're
me.
back. Okay, so then you said, but you didn't make the full connection or
Yeah,
something.
so I had all the brain stuff and the brain knowledge and things, but then I got severe burnout. It was with COVID time, so I was working, but managing the crisis of my own family safety and not knowing where the world's going, helping people in crisis of don't know where the world's going
Oh,
and they're so scared of where it's going. So it was this like I was the only one in my family that could be working, so it was like there was a lot of things and I wasn't looking
oh
after
yeah.
myself. I wasn't practicing what I preach, and so I had this severe burnout, which took me a few years to get over. But I was wondering, like, why is it taking so long? What is wrong? Like, why can't I just be healed? Like, why isn't like I've got so much faith and I've got like I'm in so much pain. What is going on? But it taught me such a beautiful thing because I was, we intellectually bypass or we spiritually bypass life. I was ignoring my body, and this brought me into my body and to realize this entwinement between mind, body, and soul, like how important the body and the emotions are, which I've overlooked for years of therapy. Being in therapy, giving therapy, it was always like these stories in our head, but it stayed in our head.
Yes.
People will tell me they think they feel this, they think they feel that. It's all here based.
Yes.
Or like this sucks, so we're going to go and pray about it and we're going to spiritually
Yeah.
bypass life. But then in my own healing of like having conversations with my body. So long story short is where I go with my clients is I try and invite them to have a conversation with their body. So wherever there's aches or pains, we go into that part and we talk to the part
Somatic.
of them.
Somatic
So
healing.
somatic healing, it's a lot like parts work therapy, which I found out about afterwards. I didn't know that existed, but that's sort of where I went to. Is like, okay, let's see what the body has to say. Like, what does it want to tell me, or what does it need? And so having that conversation just opened up a whole new avenue for me and for my clients. So yeah, it was
Oh,
a
wow.
roundabout way of saying that's where my process. I've got a couple of techniques, but those are one of my favorite to use.
I love that because then, like, that's a tool people can use when you're driving down the road, when all of a sudden you feel your neck lock up and you're like, wait, I mean, is that the kind of thing like where you're like, and talking to your body, what is it that you're trying to tell me? That kind of a thing?
That's what I'm hoping for people to get more. I think we get so quickly distracted again, and people are very uncomfortable going into their bodies because I've got to shut down the pain, I've got to shut down the exhaustion, I've got to shut down the fear because I've got to keep going. I've got to keep. I was chatting to a friend this morning about how, within a few days oh no, she was in hospital with her kid when he was sick and how she was working. And I was like, yeah, I've also been in hospital with my kid trying to work on the side. Like there isn't that permission for you to be being. Like there's this pressure of performance. And so my goal with a lot of this process is yes, we heal and we get them to, I want them to feel comfortable with their emotions because when we avoid those emotions, we get scared of it. But then to have a continuous, like you said, driving neck pain. what we tend to do is go into like, oh, not this, not as well. Like, what next? And into a curiosity of, okay, what are you trying to tell me? And to be able to be like, okay, like the first thing that comes to me for neck is being able to look around. What am I not looking around for? Is there something I'm trying to avoid? Or like having those sorts of insights that's readily available. What I love about it the most is, well, I think I love everything, but this how ready our body is to communicate with us. Like I think that our body is one of the most tangible examples of unconditional love that God's given us because we, as parents, we can judge our kids or like, don't be like this, or this is good, or this is bad, or we felt judged. But our bodies, we abuse it. We treat it like crap. We feed it crap. We talk crap about it. We look in the mirror and we judge it. We like, oh, this
Yes.
isn't good enough. This isn't good enough. But as soon as a virus comes along, it's jumping in to try and protect you. It's doing all these things. And as soon as you want to have a conversation, it's so like every client I've had from doctors, engineers, scientists, artists, like then they're like, talk to my body. Are you mad? Like this isn't going to work. And then there's this conversation waiting, and they're like, I had no idea. Like this was just right there, like waiting patiently. And I do think a lot of our pain and illnesses is our body's still trying to get our attention. Like my burnout was my body. Like I've tried every other way. I gave you headaches, I gave you tummy aches, I gave you sore knees, I gave you like these things, and you just kept going.
Right.
So how else am I going to get your attention to not to punish me, but to work in proper alignment instead of being
Absolutely.
in little parts of spiritual, mental, or
Right.
physical.
Right. That disassociating from these, whether the memories to whatever's going on that we're doing in the body. Like, what I'm thinking about that is, the body so often in the past, historically, especially spiritually, was like Gnostic, like the body is bad, right? We have
Mm.
that versus going the body, the soul, and the spirit, proper alignment. It's also a trinity within us that, again, that dance of
Yeah.
everyone has their rightful place, but then when the soul learns to allow the spirit to be the head
Yeah.
versus the soul ruling in
Mm.
terms of our personality, our desires, our will, all of those things, and coming into submission to the spirit. But the same thing with the body being the signal, though. The body is just the signal of what's off, not just, but it's such
Yeah.
an important component. I remember reading a book by Dr. Sarno, Healing Back Pain by Dr. Sarno. He was a famous back surgeon in New York City. I can't remember the clinic he was with, but just started, just doing surgeries all the time, and then decided to hire a psychotherapist to come in, someone who had studied under Freud, and realizing and just doing some assessments on all these patients that
Mm.
had these major back issues, and came to find out that there were common things in all of the back patients that
Wow.
actually needed surgery, and seeing that this was very much about mindset and what
Mm.
people perceived to be true about their problem. And so
Mm.
he even goes into talking about like when there would be epidemic, if you remember, like back in the early 90s, carpal tunnel was a thing. Then there was a
Yeah.
period of time where whiplash was a thing. And it's like, no, the, now carpal tunnel, they could say, well, computers had just come out and this kind of thing. But what it
Yeah.
is when the mind makes a decision and labels something, but there's actually something else going, but we put a label on it that's more socially acceptable. Okay, so like with the back pain, and then so he started having people, just speaking kindly to their body, asking the
Mm.
body questions, and so he would have control group and different things. And when people would just, like, let's say the back pain would come up, yes, breathing and those kind of things, but saying, well, what's going on? What are you trying to tell me? When the
Mm.
pain comes up, for example, like, I mean, when we think about it, like, let's say your knee goes out and you're like having a bad knee, what do we do? What's the first thing we usually say to our knee when it's not doing
Mm.
something right? We curse it. I mean,
Yeah,
to me,
makes
it's like a house divided can't stand. If I'm against my body, it's going to fight me.
yeah.
And I think about, like the body or parts of me, like a screaming toddler. Let's say a toddler is like freaking out, right? And they're just keep pulling on you and pulling on you. And if all I do is say, shut up, go away, stop, 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 they're not going to. Versus
Yeah,
if I turn, get down to their level and say, what is it that you need?
yeah,
And they're like, I have crap in my pants. Oh,
exactly.
oh, I just need to change your diaper, give you a hug, love on you, and then you go off and play. But instead of just
Exactly.
going, no, no, no. And when I apply that in my own life and just go, what is going on, Amy? Why is my head pounding? What do you
Mm,
need?
yeah,
It might be like, you just need water. You need some water. You have been so busy,
yeah,
you have dehydrated yourself. Your head
yeah,
hurts. Or the thoughts in your head, the whatever's going
yeah.
on. And so it's beautiful that you work with people in this capacity to broaden their perspective.
I love the toddler analogy because it is the more you ignore it, the louder it gets. Like you're not going to, we suppress it, but it comes out in other ways. So a lot of people end up with rage or, lots of other things, but it's these feelings that were unheard, like unlistened to, unheard. I use the analogy if you're stepping onto a burning coal, like if you're at a fireplace and a piece of coal falls out and you step on it, the first message is lift your foot.
Yeah.
Once you've lifted your foot, you're not going to go with your foot down going, oh, this really hurts. I wonder how bad it is. And I wonder if it's this feeling or this feeling or this feeling. No, the first message is lift your foot. Once you've lifted your foot, your body does not say lift your foot, lift your foot, lift your foot anymore. Then it starts the white blood cells and all the other things that it needs to do. But the first message, if we listen to it, it's done. And a lot of times our feelings, maybe it's not going to take once, maybe it's going to take a few times because we've ignored it for a long time. But once we have that more regular and they know that they don't have to scream to get our attention, it's, it, yeah, it's trying to protect us, whether it's right or wrong. So it's constantly trying to protect us. That's a huge shift for me because it's like you say, like my knee goes and I want to curse it because, like, do you know the convenience of this now? This is like ridiculous. Instead of it being like, oh, wow. Like, I think if we drive like across country, like you're busy getting your thing set up to go and drive, if you don't put fuel in, you can't get cross with the car and say like, what are you thinking? But
Yeah.
we treat ourselves like that constantly. Like we pay more attention to our car, like it gets washed, it does the thing. But for us, oh no, no, I don't have time to get in. I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. And I don't have time for that. But without your vehicle, there is nothing else. Like so it's crucial. It's not a luxury, it's a necessity. And I think God has that in mind. He doesn't, it's not a trap. It's a I can't wait for you to experience that and enjoy it because then you're going to let me do more because you're not trying to do it all on your own.
So good.
Permission to partake.
So good. I'm thinking about what you were saying about you lift the foot, and it's not like those feelings or those behaviors or whatever are good or bad. It's like
Mm.
that's a response. Like like our body does whatever to protect ourselves. It's not eating from either tree. And so when we are in this place too, this is kind of taking it back to like the mirror and looking at like harmatia, sin. Like what do we call? Are we focusing on behavior? Are we focusing on you're just acting outside of your original design, outside of your natural blueprint? It's not about good or bad because the body's going to do things, like we find that. Like I know that so much in my own life. Whatever that, our guardian, if you will, or whatever that part says, we're going to shut down the body. Like you said, I'm going to literally, like where you end up
Yeah.
in the hospital because you're not listening to certain things and the body shuts down, or it uses sex, drugs,
Mm.
you know, the brain shutting down, things like this, that it's doing whatever it chooses to do to keep you safe.
Exactly.
And then we get to apply, wait, but is that life-giving to me, or getting to the root of why? And then that behavior, when we focus on who we are and those kinds
Yeah.
of things, then that behavior can
Yeah.
leave. It can literally leave, where we don't focus on the problem, we focus on what is right.
Yeah.
So good.
I used to, for example, I used to be a smoker, or I used to smoke, and one of the trainings that I did, BWRT, with different things, but one of the concepts that they say is anybody born a natural smoker? And I was like, no.
Huh.
And like, so instead of thinking of yourself as, oh, I'm a non-smoker now, and constantly having this pressure of, I'm now a people that never smoke don't ever have to say I'm a non-smoker. They're just like, no, I don't smoke. But we reinforce that, like you're saying, like this reinforcement of the sin or reinforcement of the negative versus, no, I don't smoke. That's it. And like this was this huge shift of just like, oh, I don't smoke. Instead of focusing on that non-smoker part or I've worked with so many clients that I said with my own kids, like they were being kids, but because it's too loud or it's too noisy, or like what we think is like we used to, hidings used to be permissible, not anymore, but hiding, and then they'll be obedient, and God doesn't want obedience. If we use fear to create like motivation for things, we have to keep reinforcing the fear. We have to keep hell in the picture to be able to keep motivating people to come back, to keep doing
Girl,
things.
yes.
But if we can use love, your kids are going to do things even when you're not around, because love is a constant motivator. It's not there just when you're threatening them. It's an internal awakening. And so that fear of like hell and stuff, you're like, if it's gone, then people are going to know. You're using fear then as your decision maker. You're using fear as your guide. And it's the opposite of what God wants, even though you might be doing right. And I know that people can feel it in their hearts when they're using fear.
And
Not
that,
intentionally,
yeah,
consciously, but
yeah. And that is, I mean, talk about fear being a cortisol producing beast, versus love being that driving factor that allows the parasympathetic nervous system to be the dominating resting place, you
yeah,
know?
exactly.
But we've like become very accustomed to one. And I think generationally, there's a lot
Yeah.
there.
Mm.
Fear was, like I think of maybe post World War II time. I don't know, maybe it came along before that. But it was like you get quick results with that
Yeah.
kind of discipline and structure, and that gets passed down generationally. And then we apply it to ourselves. I mean, for me, I was my own worst punisher,
Mm. Mm.
which was really hard to get away from, you know,
Yeah,
as if that was what was going to keep me in line, was fear
exactly.
and shame
Mm.
and condemnation.
Yeah.
And it just perpetuated behaviors that don't align with life or
Yeah.
our original blueprint.
Mm.
Oh my gosh.
And I
There's
think
so
we
much
often think,
conversation.
yeah, I do think that like, yeah, we can, a lot of people will say, well, it's the criticism that got me this far. And I'm like, no, you're this far despite that.
Mm.
Like, imagine if love was the force, how much further it could be. It's despite fighting that fear all the time that you still managed to get this far. Like, it's not the thing that got you there. I heard it the other day again. I heard it years ago and I forgot about it, but it says fear is false evidence appearing real. And I thought, like, I think we've all read it or heard it somewhere, but I really just sat with it. And it was every single thing I've been afraid of. Like, my kids aren't going to have food, or, my son's been in hospital many times. Like, all these things that he's not going to make it, or these deep, real fears, false evidence appearing real. They feel very real. They look very real. The facts seem real, but there's more than one source. And I remember, like, our most recent time in hospital with my son, the scripture, the joy of the Lord is my strength, kept coming up. And I was like, this is like ridiculous. Like, this is like a really dangerous situation. I'm overwhelmed. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm crying. I don't know what's going to, like, my son, like, what's going on? Why is the joy coming up? Like, I'm not going to be joyous now. And I realized it doesn't say your joy needs to be his joy. Or, like, he says, my joy is your strength. And I realized that he's got joy because he knows the outcome. And I can lean into his outcome. And so being in the hospital, I still had my tears, but there was this peace because it was my strength is not, I don't have to have joy now, but I can have peace knowing he knows the outcome. And that's where, do you trust me? And I, oh, yes, I do. I forgot. I'm trying to do it again. Thank you.
which really might be a great place to kind of wrap this up, because all of this conversation, all of the training, the experiences you've had, I've had, that deal so much with emotion, our minds, that can be driven because of ours or other people's circumstances, really brings us back to gazing at our Father through Jesus' eyes, to that place of, like you said, his joy, his strength, knowing as we walk in, like, just this journey of intimate relationship with him.
Yeah.
That changes everything. I mean, for me, and I'm, no intention of needing to go into all the circumstances in the last several years, that when I gaze at that, it's not pretty. And I have moments that you just kind of line up like, what in the hell has happened? And then that changes emotion, that changes so many things. And then we're operating in a place where the heart shuts down, the walls come back up, and it becomes very introspective in a way that's not helpful.
Yeah.
And then I hear the whisper that's like, just look, my joy, my heart for you. This is what I see. This is what I know. This is who I am in all your circumstances. And literally, like you said, you can be bedside at the hospital and something changes. There's still tears, there's still things, but there is a knowing
Yeah,
that
exactly.
surpasses all of our understanding. And that is
I know,
so beautiful.
I know we need to wrap up, but there's just
Oh,
one
no.
thing I want to share.
Yes, please.
Like you saying that you hear him, and I say that I hear him. I know there's a lot of people that feel that they don't hear him. I know my son has said to me, Mom, you say you hear God. I don't hear him. Why isn't he talking to me? And so it's been an interesting journey for me to discover, like, it's not, I just want to add this because I feel some people
Yes,
think
please.
you must be selected or I must be selected, that, he's speaking to us. He's got different ways of connecting with all of us, whether it's images or feelings or words. Like, we have to start that conversation, be open to it, that it's not selected. Like, I just felt like I have to share, like, for the people listening and going like, oh, she hears him. I wish I could hear him. We often ask, but we don't listen. Don't wait for the answer. We're like, I asked, but then I started doing this and I started, like, we don't take the time to actually kava, wait upon the Lord, like intertwine with him and see what,
Yes,
give him
that
time.
dovetail jointing, which
Yeah.
is a beautiful, like, how in the mirror, like that of Isaiah, those who wait upon the Lord. And it's like, wait, no, it's to entwine, to be, to sit with. And don't you think, like, the fact that your son talks to you about that, just honoring where they're at, we are all, like, there were so many years I'm sure I didn't hear. But so then when I project, I don't hear, that's the thought I have, I put that, I don't hear.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
so then that is what I put out there. As I have come into that place of, literally, I think the mirror has been my biggest helper in this area, is in that place of belovedness. Everything he has is for me.
Yeah.
So I'm not the one who is left out. I
Yeah.
am included, not because of what I've done, but because of who he is. And my choice to just say, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I am open to believing what you believe to be true about me. And I don't have to do it perfect today, but every day my neural pathways change as my heart comes into alignment with this reality. And then when I go into my quiet space or whatever, I go in going, he wants me in front of his throne. He's in me, and I get to discover this place more and more of this garden that resides in me, and see him through my sanctified imagination, get to see and know that sometimes I'm creating it and sometimes he's revealing and I'm seeing into the realms
Yeah.
beyond that were created for us to find rest and to let this grow and expand and impact the world around us in everything we do, see, experience, walk through. And that's for every single person, like you said. It's just going to look different for all of us and how. And that's what the relationship is. It's like, it's not a rule book, it's come and play.
Yeah,
Love it.
exactly. And that play is so important. It's an invitation to mess up. Like the amount of perfectionism I see. And perfectionism is a judgment. It's not a standard. You can have high standards, but it's perfectionism is a judgment. And there's so much, yeah, like even when God looks at us, my dad often says, he doesn't look at you with Jesus goggles. Like he's like, okay, well, I'll look at you through this lens of
Yeah.
he loves what he sees. And I can't think of a single kid that does not love being seen. And we somehow get so busy that we forget that he enjoys his gaze. Like we think of our behavior to whether we deserve it or not, instead of it just being that being.
We are more than enough.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Awesome.
This conversation has been precious to me. Thank you for your willingness to hop on and get to connect and just
Thank
meet each other face to face, sort of
It was
face.
very spur of the moment and it was beautiful. I loved it. Thank you.
Yeah. You
Very
guys,
complete.
thanks for tuning in to this. I'm going to put in the description ways that you can connect and learn more about what Tehilla is up to and some of her offerings. I know she's got courses for couples that are very powerful. And if you want to learn more or follow her on social media, I'll put that stuff in the comments below. You guys, thanks for hopping on and joining us today. We're glad you came.